want to come to nature though, because you said that's one where the dynamic hasn't yet changed and the practices haven't yet changed, despite your efforts and indeed, you know, Partha Dasgupta's efforts as an economist to change the narrative around nature. Now, it's not a universally bleak story. I turn back to your own country, to Costa Rica, where you've been a global green pioneer. You've turned the corner along a number of fronts. I'd like to ask you, how's that happened? You know, we do have exemplars of progress, and what delivered it in Costa Rica, and what can we learn from that experience in terms of turning the corner elsewhere around the world?
I have a good friend who says anything that is possible in Norway, Israel, or Costa Rica is not necessarily possible anywhere else. Little miracle countries, each very different in doing so, but quite different. Yeah, so Costa Rica's story is really pretty impressive, but it doesn't mean that it's a copy paste. It is unique, and it is very laudable, and it is the story of a country that realized very early on that we had absolutely no value under the ground. We have no metals, we have no mineral resources, we have no precious stones, we have, you know, nothing to dig up. We don't have any fossil fuels, we have nothing to dig up. As many other countries were blessed in 20th century terms, were blessed with a lot of resources underground. And Costa Rica wasn't. We were blessed with many resources above ground. Our biodiversity is our richness, is our wealth. By the way, that's why our name is the Rich Coast, because that's what you see from the coast, is our beautiful greenness. So we were, in terms of energy, we didn't have fossil fuels. We were too poor to import. So we decided, let's use the resource that we have. What is it? Water. And so from the beginning, our electrification in Costa Rica was with hydro. To that, we then later added geothermal, because we also have several active volcanoes. And to that, we then added wind when wind energy became commercially available, because we figured out that we have a rainy season and a dry season. In the rainy season, all our reservoirs fill up and we have plenty of hydroelectricity. But in the dry season, our reservoirs go down. And what is Costa Rica's little miracle? In the dry season, there is a lot of wind. So wind and water actually complement each other beautifully as energy sources in Costa Rica, which is why we have both of them, in addition to geothermal that serves as our base load. So we have never imported or used fossil fuels for our electricity. We do import fossil fuels for our transport. We are desperately trying to change that, because if it ever makes sense to have electric transport, is in a country where all electricity is clean. So that makes extraordinary amount of sense, but we are very far behind on that one, sadly, still. That is with respect to the energy sector. With respect to the land use sector, our agriculture is not one to model in front of any other country. Very, very poor use of land for both cattle and agriculture. So a huge challenge still for us. Where we are a pretty impressive example is what we have done on forest cover. We just 20 years ago, we had 29% of the country under forest cover, and today we have 52%. One of the very, very few countries that have not just halted deforestation, but actually increased forest cover. Why? Because it's in our interest to do so. Yes, of course, you can, put a morality argument to that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The fact is, it's just in our economic interest to do so. We are an eco-tourist destination. Tourism is our #1 income. No one comes to Costa Rica to see any of our cities because whatever man and woman have made in Costa Rica is not attractive. But what nature has done in Costa Rica is absolutely astonishing. And so people come to Costa Rica to enjoy our national parks. 25% of our territory is in national parks. They come here because of our biodiversity. Between 5 and 6% of the world's biodiversity is in this tiny, tiny little country. We have, and we understand that the more we protect our biodiversity, the more income we're going to have from tourists who come here because they appreciate the biodiversity. So, again, this is value and values. Yes, of course, it's a moral, and we can get on our moral high horse, and we can say and beat our chest and say we, are protecting our land and da-da-da-da. Honestly, it just makes financial sense. It just makes financial sense. And that's the way it should be, Andy, right? We should everywhere be able to make a business case for protecting and investing and regenerating nature. It should be a business case. It should not be a morality issue. It should not even be a beauty issue, although it is also that. It should not only be a mental health issue. I feel better when I'm walking in the forest or walking on my beach. Yes, all of that is true. But if it doesn't have teeth, if it's not a business compelling case, it's just not going to happen. So again, here's my call to the economists of the world to fix that.
So on that, as an economist, albeit a recovering one, Christiana,
Are you an economist, Andy?
I'm an economist by background.
Okay, well, what can you do with your peers then?
Well, I mean, we're playing catch up. The profession's playing catch up, it's interesting that on both climate through Stern and on nature through Dasgupta,
Yes,
they've turned to economists to redeem their sins of the past, Christiana, and I'm certainly in that camp as well. But in terms of what we can do collectively, not just as economists, what are the avenues for helping us make the business case as compelling as possible? And let me give you one example here, which I recently was reading about with real interest, which is the notion of nature-based markets. So economists like markets. Ordinarily, we have not had markets in nature, but now there's an embryonic movement towards developing markets in nature. That could be seagrass, that could be peat bogs, that could be kelp fields of various types. Is this a economist misthink? Is this a misuse of markets, or is this a sort of route to redemption for nature and making the business case? Love your views.
Well, I know that this is a very polarizing topic, very contentious, but my position has been clear for years. I am very much on the side and part of the school of thought that believes that we have to attach monetary value to that which we treasure. And that means attach a monetary value to the role of nature. And I am very much of an enthusiast for markets. I sat on the CDM board, if anybody remembers the Clean Development Mechanism way back when. I sat on the CDM board for many years before heading the secretariat. And I am very much of a proponent of carbon markets in both the energy and the nature sector. And I know that there are many countries, especially in Latin America, by the way, that don't agree with that position. But I think that the benefits outweigh the risks. the benefits of being able to inject financing in the short term into the protection of nature, as you say, seaweed, mangroves, reforestation, restoration of degraded soils, on and on and on and on. There's so much that needs to be done. And that if we don't do it, we will actually get to a tipping point beyond which all of this is going to be irrecuperable. So I think that there is a case to be made here of the timing and the urgency of the injection of capital into the restoration and regeneration of nature. If our dear economists had actually done their job, we maybe would need the carbon markets because there would be a clear, compelling business case to do so. But as they come to their collective wisdom in the meantime, because carbon emissions do have a recognized value in the market, to me, it just makes extraordinary amount of sense to use part of that to inject urgent capital into the protection of nature before it is too late. Those who argue to me that no, first we have to reach perfection of decarbonization in the energy sector, and then we will turn our attention to nature. To me, that argument is too dangerous, because it would mean that we wouldn't turn to nature until 20 or 30 years from now. How much nature are we going to have left by then? It is, from my point of view, irresponsible to play with nature that way. So I am very much of a proponent of using market measures, market instruments to inject financing into the protection and regeneration of nature. Having said that, yes, of course, there's a lot of greenwashing going on. There's a lot of, playing games with numbers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is understandable. But the exercise for me should not be throw the baby out with the bathwater, but rather bathe the baby better so that it's a clean baby. Don't throw the baby out. Have integrity, have more integrity, have much better data. Completely possible now with the satellite capacity that we have around the world. It's completely possible to monitor every single square inch of this planet. In fact, it is being monitored. So we don't have to play those games anymore. We don't have to, do greenwashing. It is, from a technical perspective, totally possible to have high integrity in everything that has to do with protection and regeneration of nature. And I think it is urgent. And I am very saddened by the fact that the cases that have been proven of abuse of those projects actually then annihilated that entire category of offsets, if they're called, for the carbon market.